My name's Emily Garthwaite and I'm a photojournalist. I've been working across the Middle East now since 2017 and focus a lot on remote mountain communities and pilgrimages. I was first invited to Iraq in 2017 to walk a pilgrimage. I'd never been to the Middle East before. I knew very little, and I imagine I had very similar notions of the Middle East to a lot of people that haven't been there. So I was incredibly surprised and compelled by the story of pilgrimage in southern Iraq. And I started to make it an annual pilgrimage. So I walked the Arba'in pilgrimage in southern Iraq 3 times and made a big project about it. And then I was invited to the north of Iraq, to the Kurdistan region, to work with writer Leon McCarran because he was developing Iraq's first long-distance hiking trail. And after 5 days of walking it, I rented a place in the capital city of Erbil, and I never left. I've been walking around Iraq now for many years. I don't know, it's thousands of kilometers now. It's a country which deserves a lot more love and affection and attention, and I felt that this was a very strong calling that I could dedicate myself to the country. Iraqis have always inspired courage in me, always. I've met remarkable men and women and communities who have been able to withstand and overcome generationally unimaginable traumas and difficulties, and through it come out with a sense of joy and happiness that I've had to learn a lot from. One of the greatest strengths I have is being a woman, because being a woman photographer, particularly in Iraq, means you have access to every single space. The way that the society is built is that male guests, male journalists or photographers, they're not allowed into the family part of the house. They're not going to meet women and girls. So I have this sort of full spectrum of experience in Iraq, and so it's been a phenomenal strength. And despite people's biases, I have never been diminished when working in Iraq. I've always been respected. But I get to be in women's spaces and have those conversations about what's happening in the area. You get greater honesty from women's spaces than you do working in men's spaces. In men's spaces, there's some projection and some protection of the image of the area. They don't want you to hear the struggles that are happening. Whilst in the women's, there's a discussion about these are the difficulties we're facing and what are the solutions, and it's much more community-based. The men, when they come into the family space and you're there, you get to experience the men in a very different light. You know, they're playing with their daughters, they're hugging their wife, you see that intimacy and that connection, which for male visitors, they wouldn't see that. They'd see much more of the kind of front-facing, slightly more kind of protective nature from the men. I always get to see the men at their softest. It helps you understand a country when you go inside people's homes. That's really the kind of test of the society. Our definitions of courage differ depending on how we grew up, where we live, the environments that we've lived in, how much we've traveled. And my understanding of what's courageous is different to what your understanding of courage is. And courage and adventure has always been defined, understandably, through like the lens of solo expeditions. And a lot of it is kind of snow and ice and mountains and polar exploration. But I think when I think of courage, I do think kind of most profoundly of just trying to be a good person, making good decisions, thinking of others. I wouldn't really think of it as a macho act or a warrior or conflict, or I think courage is much quieter than we think it is. It's shared courage. You've got an idea and then you meet someone else who's got the same insane idea, and then you're ready to go. It just requires one other person. You've got to meet eye to eye with someone else and you go, okay, we're gonna do this. That's where the fire is sparked. And I've been very lucky in my career in life that I've seemed to have found and gravitated towards people with similarly kind of mad ideas. And now they're real things, and we did them. You know, and every single time you do them, you say never again, and then you come up with another idea. When the plan was first made for the Tigris expedition, to go down the Tigris from source to sea, we were just told it was impossible. And they were so right. It basically was near impossible. It's one of the most militarized rivers in the world. But we did it. So you've just got to keep on going. What they meant is that no one had done it before, so you just have to presume that that's because someone didn't try hard enough. To live courageously would be to collaborate with others, because I think that's where it sparks the fire and the courage required to live out your passions and your dreams. To live courageously is to be quiet in your courage. I don't think courage is loud or aggressive, and it's sometimes not even known to a lot of people because all of our definitions of courage are different. And courage is compassion too. We should be thinking about how to use our courage to collaborate and to be of service to other people. We absolutely need more compassion in the world. When we look at what's happening globally and how refugees are being treated, how people fleeing conflict are being treated, people who are in the grips of natural disasters and forest fires and climate change. We are more of a global society than ever, but we're also more divided than ever. So it seems to be more important than ever to be compassionate. And I think that takes more and more courage because we're more isolated from each other than ever.